around to see why the women were firing like there was no tomorrow. What he saw terrified him, not because it was bad, but because it was impossible. It wasn't the girls shooting. It was the cavalry he'd wished for just a minute ago. Wishes like that couldn't come true, did they? Not in this life. Then he realized he must be dead. He stared at the horses racing toward him to see if one had a chariot behind it. He didn't see one. All he could see was 7 horsemen shooting at the fence line from a full gallop like they were Roy Rogers. Maybe the chariot was following the horsemen, or maybe he rode double with one of them. He looked down and checked for the bullet hole. He couldn't find it in any part he could see. They must have hit him in the head. At least it didn't hurt. But if he was dead, why was he still breathing so hard? He turned back toward the MZBs. They were running the other way. Who could blame them? If he had 7 angels riding toward him and unleashing the wrath of God, he'd haul ass too. He turned back and looked up the hill. He was too far away in the failing light to see if the snipers were running away, but no more shooting was coming from that direction. Mark watched the riders gracefully slow their mounts, while their rifles continued to encourage the MZBs to remain at their current course and speed. The lead angel stopped his horse just feet from Mark. The heavenly steed was all white. He was huge, and Mark could see the rippling muscles beneath his perfect coat. His eyes were wild, but they held a knowing look of a creature not of this world. They looked at Mark and blinked, as if to say, "Poor little mortal." Mark hoped that if he had to ride to heaven on one of the horses, it would be this one. The earthly being looked up at the rider. God had sent not just angels, but Spanish angels. 7 Spanish angels. Mark seemed to remember a poem or song about that. The angel was the most beautiful creature Mark had ever seen. Not feminine beauty, but with the look of rugged, masculine perfection. His face was weathered, but his arms held a young man's muscles, rivaling those of the beast he rode. His skin was dark, and his eyes were the color of the sky. His hair was short and dark with just a trace of silver at the temples. His teeth beamed a flashing white smile that would have made a movie star jealous. He opened his mouth to speak, and Mark prepared himself to hear the most eloquent and perfect words ever spoken on earth. He was sure the voice would resonate like a choir in a cathedral. He was surprised, however, when the first sentence came out. "Mister, that's the bravest fucking thing I ever saw in my life," he said in a raspy voice. "You must have one humongous set of cojones on you." He stepped down off the horse as Mark stood there dumbfounded. I, Mark stuttered. "Well, shit, there's no need to thank me," the horseman said with a toothy smile. He must be a man, Mark thought. Surely an angel wouldn't talk this way. "Thank you," Mark stammered. "Where'd you come from?" "We were over on the western edge of this pasture following tire tracks from some assholes who cut my fence. We heard the shooting and came over to see what the deal was. I would have helped you sooner, but we couldn't really tell who were the good guys and who were the bad guys. As far as we were concerned, you were both trespassing, so we just thought we'd let you thin each other out. Once we saw you rushing the position of the other guys, we all said we had to help you, even if you was old Beelzebub himself. Bravery like you showed shouldn't be wasted." The men heard some engines start up on the other side of the sniper's hill. One of the other riders nudged his horse over to the head horseman. This squat man had a big, ugly scar on his face from his mouth to his ear on one side. Except for the color of his skin, he was a complete opposite of the man with whom Mark was talking. "You want us to go check that out, Billy?" he asked.